Zebert. Today, Kathy, I'll read you her bio because it's like super long. And by the way, all of this is on our website. Kathy is a freelance and official court reporter, has been since 1994. Got that? 1994. She's reported in Mississippi, Tennessee, South Carolina, and Georgia. She's currently in Athens, Georgia. She has a bachelor's degree in alternative dispute resolution from Kaplan University. She has given incredible amounts of time on volunteering for NCRA, as well, most importantly, at least to me at this stage, today, she is a past president of the Tennessee Court Reporters Association. This is a great example of, once again, our profession giving back to our profession. She's authored many, many articles in the Journal of Court Reporting, as well as the Volunteer Reporter, which is TCRA's newsletter, on various topics. She's given many seminars to both professional court reporters and students. She's been a guest speaker at annual conferences of state associations in South Carolina, Mississippi, today again in Tennessee, as well as she was here last spring in Nashville with NCRA's National Convention. Just another little tidbit, she was profiled just this month, I think, this month or last month, in NCRA's JCR magazine. So yay for her. She currently is owner of StenEdge, which is a continuing education resource on multi-levels of the profession, from students to working professionals. She offers free, got that? Free steno briefs daily, and has written a briefs ebook entitled Briefly Speaking. In addition, she has a Facebook group entitled Court Reporting Q&A with more than 1,500 members. She is absolutely amazing, and we've been trying to get her to attend TCRA's convention since last year, so it finally came to fruition. So welcome back to Tennessee, Kathy Zebert, my friend. Thank you.
Have you guys had a great conference so far? Yeah? I will tell you that a bonus to me was that this is home. My son still lives here, and so I've been here since Thursday spending time with my grandchildren. So double bonus for me. And thank you so much, Sheila. I really, really appreciate it. And it really makes you feel good when somebody that you used to work with wants you to come back and speak. I really didn't start out being interested in speaking at all, and I've done some things here and there, but I started StenEdge. When I started it, I started it with, okay, I'll do some continuing education because everything was so expensive for me, and it got to be so expensive for me to go to national conferences. I just couldn't afford $2,000 as a single parent. So thank you very much. So, yay. Not that my voice needs it, but at any rate. So I started it with the intent of just providing continuing education for people who were like me, maybe couldn't get to the conference, and I could provide that at a less expensive price for them. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just start a Facebook page because I need people to know about it, and I'll just offer free briefs. And so I started that, and I was a member of a few court reporting groups, briefs groups, and I said, hey, I'm giving free briefs if anybody would like to, come like the page. And I had no idea. 6 months later, there are a couple thousand people on that page, and they are relying on me every day to give briefs, and I really wasn't sure that I just thought, okay, I'm not really sure I can keep doing this, but for whatever reason, it keeps coming. So obviously there's a plan for that. But so then people started asking me to speak, and National last year asked me to speak on interrupting the record, and so I really gave it an awful lot of thought. I've had so many conversations with reporters over the last 20 years, reporters, and I also had the benefit of growing up with a judge. My dad's practiced for 50 years, and he started out as a prosecuting attorney, and then he, had several positions in a small town, and then county positions, and he sat many, many years on the bench. And so as I became a court reporter later in my life, we had tons of conversations about procedures, both in deposition and in court, and what the judge is looking at as far as what happens in proceedings that maybe the judge is not familiar with. Obviously, depositions judges aren't there. So many conversations, and then I began to have conversations with the clients that I took depots for. If I'm in a deposition, I want to know, what are you looking for? What is your beef? So I began to ask questions of them because so many reporters have a problem with interrupting. We're in school, at least when I was in school, and I went to school in Austin, and I was taught not to interrupt. And so then if you combine your personality with, I'm a little intimidated, by this whole process, by these attorneys in the room, with you're not supposed to interrupt, you're kind of dead in the water. So you really have to think about, okay, but I need to interrupt, because as I began to have conversations with my dad, as I said, I began to realize how important what I was doing really was. So we all know that we're there for the record, right? Everybody knows that. But when I started thinking about what the record was about, who or what does the record represent? Well, it represents the people who were there seeking justice or to be made whole. So if you think about it in that context, then what you do becomes way up here as opposed to middle ground where you thought it might be. So then it becomes necessary. Which word isn't important? A tiny, tiny word such as the word not can change everything about a case. But what happens, not that you would drop it, I'm not even saying that. What if somebody is squeaking a chair, tapping their pencil? We know they talk on top of each other. That's a given. But, and it became really important to me when I moved here. Because and the reason, if you haven't ever reported in another state, then you may not be aware of this. Maybe you are. But Tennessee is kind of a rarity because freelancers do both depot and court. Well, Mississippi has officials in every courtroom. So freelancers don't go into court unless they are doing maybe a daily copy for somebody who's hiring them privately, but that isn't the official record. The official record is from the official that's in the courtroom. So when I moved here after having practiced in Mississippi, you can imagine I was a little caught off guard when I walked into Nashville courthouse and walked in the door and I went, why are there 20 machines in front of the bar? And I don't know my attorney. And so I'm having to wait for him to stand up and announce himself and then catch him to let him know, and then hope that they don't start talking before I race to my machine and sit down. So no, Georgia doesn't do that. South Carolina didn't do it. They just don't mix the two unless it's a special circumstance. So I found it became really, really important, and I'll share with you a couple of things that happened to me along the way that can make you see why it's important, and then we can talk about maybe some things that you can do to help you. Realizing that whatever I tell you today, it's not going to change your life. And every situation is going to be different. Every attorney that you interact with is going to be different. But first, let me say that you should have access to a handout from my conference today. I wrote this document because it's more important for me. I could stand here all day long and talk to you guys about the problems. We already know what they are. You deal with them every day. I can give you some suggestions about what to do to help you along the way to make sure that the record is good. But the most important thing that you can do is educate your clients, educate the people that you're in the room with about what you need from them to help. It's kind of a help me, help you. Nobody's in charge in that room. Everybody's egos should be left at the front door because we're all there for those people. So, but truthfully, after talking to some attorneys, they don't have a hidden agenda. They're not court reporter haters or the record haters. They just don't understand what we need to get our job done. And I will say, quite honestly, some of them don't care. They're there for their bottom line. And they just expect, if you don't say anything, they think you're getting it. Or, since the audio's come up, they think your audio's getting it, and you can just get it later. Well, but they don't know that if I didn't hear it, the audio didn't either. And audio's not 100% fail-proof either. So I wrote this document so that everybody has access to it. Court reporters can print it out. I have been handing it out to clients, and I'm getting a really good feedback from them. They like it. They take it back to their firms and print it off and give it to their people to take into depots with them because they like the line. Okay, if I do this, this is what I get. If I do this, this is what I get. Because I can tell you, they don't learn anything in law school about court reporters or the record. They learn about how to read the cases after they've been done and how to brief them and how to make their case. They don't get that. So what they get is when they go to work with a firm, they get a little 2-paragraph thing from their firms that tell them this is what the court reporter can and can't do. So just say that part, which we all know isn't true, because when they say the court reporter can't say can't take down and Hey, dude, you just said that. What do you think I wrote? I can't say that. So anyway, I wrote that document. It is yours to use. Feel free to copy it. I only put my name on the bottom of it because I didn't want somebody else to print it without my permission. It's happened. So I just put my name on the bottom. I don't care. Copy it as many times as you want to. Hand it out to folks if you feel the need to educate. I will say just briefly that I just spoke in Mississippi end of April, and as I was there, the most exciting thing happened to me. There was a lady who is the director of the Mississippi Judicial College there. She specifically came to hear me speak. And after I was finished, she came up and she asked me if I would be willing to come back and talk to the judiciary and the Young Lawyers Association in Mississippi, because they need to hear. She was a lawyer. She's now director of all the training that they get throughout the year. And so how exciting is that, right? That somebody is willing to listen to the court reporter's perspective of this legal team that we belong to. So that was exciting news, and I told her, of course, And what's even more exciting about it is that I have such a game in store for them. They are going to get to be me, and I am going to get to be them. There's no better learning experience, right, other than role-playing. And we're going to do a little bit of that today to get you guys moving. So one reason that I don't do a PowerPoint is because I don't have somebody telling me that I made a typo. But the other reason is because I think if people learn better sometimes if they get involved in the process so that they can ask questions and they can role play as opposed to sitting there, having someone read them a PowerPoint. So I'll give you a couple of examples of some things that have happened along the way. Some of them have happened to me, but others have happened to other people that have shared their information with me. The first thing that happened to me was something really significant. We all have to be, somebody should be paying attention during the proceedings. And this was a court proceeding, and it was the second time this case had been tried. And the court reporter was sick. The court reporter was there, but sick and heavily medicated. Seriously, heavily medicated. So after, I don't know how, at least a year had gone by when they had made a motion for a new trial and they needed that transcript and it had not been produced. And so I was approached and asked if I would produce it. Well, it was all audio. And we're talking 2 weeks of a trial, plus a 4 or 5 day sentencing trial, sentencing hearing. And I said that I would because something needed to happen. They needed something. So I told them that I would. But I said, you understand that my certificate is going to have to say, I'm only certifying what I'm hearing. That's it. I can't certify because I wasn't there. So they understood, agreed, moved on. Well, I get to about the middle of the lead investigator's testimony, and the tape ends, and when the new one starts, there's clearly a gap. And the gap, I later discovered after, kind of listening to where we were, was between the end of the lunch break and the beginning of the afternoon, when they came back after the afternoon break. So we're missing from like 1 to 3:30. There's nothing there. Well, this was a death penalty case that had occurred, I think the murder actually occurred in like 1986. And as I said, this was the second time this thing had been trialed. It got thrown back down the first time and they were retrying it. So I called the judges. There were a group of them in this district, and I called them and I said, we need to meet because I don't really know what to do. I was listening to the audio, and the reason I know the court reporter was heavily medicated is because I spoke with him later. I called him and I asked him, the audio's missing, do you have your notes? I do, but I can't read them. And I said, why? I was, having back problems. I was heavily medicated, and, it just is what it is. So I went, well, there's nothing that anybody can do at this point. So I called the judges, met with the judges, and said, I don't know what you want me to do, but all I'm going to be able to do is put a parenthetical in there indicating that clearly the audio is missing, And then you guys still have to do what you have to do. So in the audio, I finished up, I could hear them saying, Mr. So-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, when they were trying to get him to, mark an exhibit. He was asleep. Okay, so I'm not blaming the reporter, okay? I'm blaming the reporter partially because that reporter had a responsibility to say, hey, I can't handle this. You need to find somebody else. But I'm also blaming everybody else in the room who saw that it was going on and did nothing about it. Nobody did anything. Somebody died. This is important stuff. Somebody was in prison, whether they should be or not. This is the case, So this is really important. And this is when somebody should have interrupted. So that's an extreme case. But I found so much of this goes on throughout the 4 states that I've been. I will say, back to Mississippi, when I spoke there, I spoke mainly to officials because the freelancers, they couldn't come to a Wednesday through Friday seminar. It's too hard for them to get off. And the officials, they have theirs paid for. So it was a majority. And I asked them how many of them had a good relationship, good rapport with their judge. They all raised their hands. Not one in the room said they had a problem interrupting. And I'm thinking, okay, well, so why are you here again? I'm sure it's just, they get their CEUs. But anyway, their judges stood in, ho, stop, you can't, the record is really important. And that's one thing that I noticed about them, is they are very cognizant, aware, and respectful of the record. And so, that's great. But when you aren't, and I've had some who are absolutely not, another experience happened to me leading to that. I was down in Murray County, and I was doing a criminal jury trial, and I swallowed the wrong way. Well, what happens? You start coughing, right? And you can't stop. Well, I was taught as a little girl that you raise your hands above your head, and that gets rid of it, right? Guess what? My hands are still on my machine because they won't stop talking. I'm joking. And the prosecutor just keeps asking his questions, and I'm sitting literally, I am right here to the witness and the prosecutor. And they are still, and the jurors, I looked over at them, and they were all like, what are they doing? So we clearly had a problem, but they clearly didn't care, So finally, the bailiff came over, and, I hadn't fallen out of the chair yet, but he said, are you okay? And I was like, clearly there's been no record for like the last minute or two, because I couldn't write anything. So the next day, when we started again, before we got started, I talked to the judge. I said, Judge, there's a rule. If the court reporter is choking, we have to stop the proceedings. And he said, I'm so sorry. And I was like, how did you not know? I couldn't see him, so maybe he was asleep up there and he just didn't hear me coughing, because I've seen him do that too. But then we have, this is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life, because I've never had this happen to me, but maybe you guys have. A witness who tells a court reporter not to interrupt them. Okay, so I know, I was floored too. We had an expert witness in South Carolina. I think he's in Charleston somewhere. And he told her before they ever got started, don't interrupt me while I'm talking. She said, what should I do? And I said, well, okay, A, don't ever take testimony if you know that he's going to be your witness. Or B, if you get there and he says that to you again, apparently he had said it to everybody in town. They were just used to it. But I said, B, that would so be my invitation to interrupt him at every opportunity. You're not the boss of me, buddy. I don't know who you think you are, but I'm here to do a job. You're doing your job, I'm doing my job. And if I need clarification, it's really important that I'm able to do my job. So, that's when you have a conversation with your client who knows he's taking this doctor, and let them know how important it is that you be able to, truthfully, I'm speaking to the attorneys, and this is your, maybe this will help you somewhat. It seems to help me when I talk to the attorneys, because you never know about personalities. Your personality style will be different than mine. But what I do is I kind of go in with a plan. And I tell them before we get started, I'm there before they are. When they walk in the room before we get started, I let them know what my process is. I tell them they don't like it when you interrupt for spellings. And really, we don't need to do that. that's not so important. We can get that later, whether it's later after the depot is over, during a break, or if we need to call them later, Google is great, right? Google is your friend. Most everybody you can Google. So, I know I just did it last week. I was like, somebody's sister lived in some city, and I didn't know how to spell her first name. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give it a shot. Otherwise, I'm going to put phonetic by it, and I'm moving on. But, sure enough, she came over to that. Have you guys seen that My Life thing, where you have to, pay to get somebody's background history? Yeah, her name came up in that city, and I went, okay, that's how you spell it. And I went on about my business. They correct all that stuff anyway if they read and sign, and if they don't, it's not really that big a deal. But so what I do is I tell them, I won't interrupt you while for spellings or things like that. But there may come a time when I will have to interrupt you for clarification, or if I didn't hear. Is there a way that you prefer I do that? Is it okay? I don't ask them if it's okay, because I have to. I'm here for your client. I'm here to make sure that the record is a good record. Is there a way you prefer I do that? I usually try to wait till there's a breath. I might look at you and go. So that doesn't always work, though, because a couple weeks ago I had a deposition. I walked in. And, you get a notice, and it says there's 7 attorneys on there, and most of the time 2 of them show up, and, you're on your way. Not this time. No, not this time. So I walk in the room. It's a South African doctor. He's an expert witness. He's not a treating physician either. So that's totally different, right? So he's here. He's there. And then one at a time, the attorneys start coming in. And, I'm trying to fill out because we're starting to run late. And the attorney who's taking the deposition, he's not even there yet. He's there later than everybody else, but one at a time. So we now have 2 from one firm, and then we have 3 or 4, on each side, and they keep coming in, and got my chart fixed up, and, then one will come in and plop down in a spot that wasn't, you just messed up everything. I was 1, 2, now I have to, okay, so maybe we're just going to do an objection for one as an objection for everybody. But at any rate, so the taking attorney comes in, and he sits down, ready to go. See, he's already upset that he's late. So now I'm going to pay, right? He's late, and I went, not really, but okay, sure, So we start, and they're tagging along first 10 minutes or so, and then all of a sudden, here we go. It is. Objective form, join. Okay, clearly we've got to do something. So I said, gentlemen, because all their joins are on top of each other. I need you to one at a time. And, realizing that you're filling up my table here, I've got to look and see who said it, not just what was said, but who said it. And I'm not even going to bother telling you all the other things I have to do to it, But, so anyway, they said, okay. So here we go, 2, 3 questions, objective form. Really? So now I'm just supposed to look at you too? I really wanted to look out the window, but now I had to look at everybody. You're raising your hand, and what happens if somebody subpoenas my records, and I got to keep the audio for X number of whatever months, and somebody says, well, I didn't hear an objection there. Nope, guess you didn't, because they were raising their hand. So then we,
it gets to a point where the attorney is asking a very clear question, yes or no. Doctors don't like yes or no. We all know this. And so he's going on and on and on. And the attorney's getting angry. And, he says, just answer the question. The witness goes, what was the question? Guess what comes next? Yeah. Did you read that back? Well, I'll share with you what I told my dad. And I haven't used it yet, but I really, really want to. I said, the next time an attorney asks me to read back a question like that, I'm going to say, Mulligan. We're done. Start over. He doesn't know what it was. I don't either. So let's start over. He laughed so hard when I told him that. He said, I think that is so funny. He said, I really wish you would do that and report back what they say. And I said, well, I'm going to have them call you, and you can tell them that you said, the judge said, I could say that. But anyway, they think it's funny if I do it, tell it to them off the record, but I don't think they would like that very much if I told them on the record. So getting back to the suggestions, that is my first suggestion to you. Explain your process. Tell them what you're doing. This is my practice. Number one, what that does is it lets them see that you're not taking a back seat to the proceedings. You're walking in as a professional to do that professional job. Because we all know that if you've been doing this any length of time, you could ask their questions, right? Guaranteed. Especially if somebody types them up for you like they do. Some of them have them typed up. I could ask those all day long. But they couldn't sit at your job for 2 seconds. You know it, and they know it too. But, we are not an extension of their clerical staff. We're there to do our job. And in order for us to do it effectively, sometimes we need them to restate what they just said. I will tell you that one thing that somebody brought to my attention one time that I never would have thought about was another reporter friend of mine in South Carolina said that an attorney had told her when she asked for a repeat of an answer, she said, did you say, whatever the word was, did you say store? And the attorney told her during a break, don't do that because it presupposes an answer. And if he didn't say store, he might now. So just ask him to repeat his answer. What was that? So I never would have thought of that, but I don't ask them. I say, excuse me, could you repeat the last word you said? So that's one suggestion. The other suggestion is I've had an attorney tell me that he just doesn't like aggressive people, the aggressive style, whatever that is. But you can kind of guess, nobody's throwing anything at him or anything, although I've known people to do that. I've known reporters who did that in my career, pick up a pencil and throw it across the room. Oh, stop it, I will say that if it gets too bad, I'll raise my hands, both of them. Not one like I'm asking a question. Both of them. So if they're looking at me, they might not be looking at you. And sometimes I've had to say, excuse me, gentlemen, we don't have a record right now. And that kind of gives them an opportunity to calm down a little bit and realize, well, okay, you're right, we need to, protect that. But, so that's one suggestion is, raise your hands. But I would say the people that I know who are really comfortable doing it, they're not aggressive. But I could tell this attorney was like, I just don't like it when they, jump in there and, sound kind of rude when they, I didn't hear that, or, can you repeat that? And so sometimes you really want to, but, sometimes you can take things a little too far, when things get out of hand. And sometimes you just don't have an option. Sometimes you just don't. There isn't the opportunity, or people are not nice to you when you know, they act like, but I will say this, last year when I spoke in Nashville, I had one gentleman, I don't remember where he was from, but he said that if the proceedings get out of control, he has left the room. He has told them, I am taking a break, and I will only come back when the proceedings can be in control. And I thought, awesome, good for you. But I asked him, when he said that, I asked him if he thought that a woman could get away with that. And I mean, it was a real serious question, because I'm not sure, you know, that I could get away with saying, I'm going to step out. They would say, don't come back. We'll get another reporter, you know. So that's why people are silent, because I think that they're intimidated by maybe what could happen in the process. You know, I don't really, what is going to happen? What do you think would happen if you interrupted? You're not going to jail, not unless you know, said some cuss words. But, you know, you're not, I mean, nothing's going to happen to you if you interrupt. And if you can't hear it, about 2 months ago, you think you're relying on your audio, right? Everybody does. Everybody thinks, oh, okay, I'm not going to say anything. Just the audio, you know, I'll just listen to it later. It'll be apparent. Well, I was told by a large firm owner that that's what the reporter thought. And when she went to listen to the audio, it wasn't there. It wasn't there. And she had two. She had a digital and she had onboard. Neither one of them were there. And it was a video, and guess what? The audio over the video wasn't there either. So clearly she had done something really wrong and she was being punished. Because this was an all-day depot, and you want to talk about having to explain yourself if you're not on your mark, you know. So that's why they say, you know, don't rely on the audio, because it just isn't, you know, I mean, if you're going to drop words, make sure they're teeny tiny ones. You know, and you can make sense of it later, because that audio may not help you out. So, I mean, you know, other people go, it's not going to happen to me. Okay. I'm not willing to risk it. Because that is, you know, you could go to jail for that. I don't, depending. But then another thing happened where the person thought they were going to rely on the audio. And it was an attorney who didn't speak well. You know, there are some who stutter and kind of stammer through, and they just don't really have a good rhythm. You know, people speak in rhythm, and you can get with the rhythm, and, you know, everything's going along fine, but some people just don't. And he didn't, and he trailed off at the end, so he would mumble, and well, you know, you think to yourself, I can't interrupt this guy every single time he does that, because it's every sentence. But you kind of should, you know, if he does it and you can't hear him. But anyway, she thought, okay, I'll clean it up later. Which she did. And she sent it to him. And he called her. That's not what I said. Can you bring the audio? I would have to, I don't keep that audio. It's my work. I don't really know what happened. But I mean, I have another colleague who doesn't keep the audio. Once the job is complete, it's gone. The audio's gone, because, you know, he says that's my work product. But some states require you to keep the audio. Georgia is one. I have to keep the audio. And I think I have to keep it for maybe 6 months or whatever. But at any rate, so you can't always rely on the audio. But you can, there are some things you can do. So let's talk about court for a little bit. Who goes into court? Does everybody go into court? Oh, majority of you go into court. Okay, so now you're presented with a completely different scenario. Because if you don't work with the same judge every time, then you probably don't have a rapport with that judge. You walk into a strange courtroom, and it's probably old, it has horrible acoustics. My favorite is when they put me, when I go to a courtroom, and I've done this in Tennessee, and I love the small towns. I'd much rather do them than I would go to Nashville when I was here. That was where I'd rather be, because they just seem so genuine and nice, and there's not the security, But anyway, I was jury, and they have like the chairs that are like stuck to the floor. The old ones that are like a metal pole, and they're really uncomfortable ones. So they have those. The jury has to sit there. They don't have a choice. They're between the court reporter with their backs to the court reporter. They're in the middle, and then they're going to do their voir dire. So I'm like, I'm not going to sit back here because I can't see anything. I can't hear anything. They're not looking at me, and there's just no way. So I'm going to buck the system and move over here in between you and them. And then they move the podium. So you can't see the person talking. You don't know who it is. So a friend of mine came up with a really great system for court. Now, if you frequent the same courthouse every time, you can go and have a conversation with the judge. I do. If I'm going to be in there working with that judge, I'll say, hey, judge, you want to go have some lunch? I want to know kind of what your procedures are. I can tell you, maybe you can help me out, with what I need to do if I have to go to the restroom or, so that you have some kind of signal, especially if you're not doing real time. If you're doing real time, awesome, because, most of them are well aware of real time, and they can read it, and they know you need to go to the restroom. You can put it right up there if they're reading it at that time. Maybe it goes up the screen, and you go, okay, I got to do that again, because clearly he didn't see that. But if you're not doing real time, then you need some kind of signal. And if it's not the judge, maybe it is the bailiff. Maybe it is the clerk. Somebody. You need to have some kind of signal going on if you need something. But in court, a lot of the judges don't like for you to interrupt. Some want you to. They don't want to do it because they don't know if you're getting it or not. I did take a trial here one time where the judge apparently didn't do a lot of jury trials because every time an attorney would object, he would call them up to the bench. Object. Come up. No, and the bench was like, I was sitting down and it was like way up here. There was no way, even if you had a highboy tripod, you couldn't stand up and right there. There was just no way to do it. And so then what he did was he looked at me, he was going to read some case law. And he said, I'll provide you with a copy of this later. Maybe you're not reading it right. I don't know. No, that's not the way this works. So, have a conversation with the judge. Now, if you're not able to have a conversation with the judge, then you've got to figure out how it is you interrupt. And the only way I know to do that is to do it. You're taking a risk, but do it because they might not say so. They expect you to interrupt if you can't hear anything. Somebody was saying in the Q&A group that I have on Facebook, somebody was saying the other day that in their courthouse, all of the judges have signs up for the reporters saying, you are expected to speak up if you can't hear anything. How cool is that, right? So somebody's been educated about how, we need to be able to We can't always hear what's going on, especially when the acoustics are bad or, it's just a much bigger room. And you're not in control of that courtroom. That's what most reporters think when they walk in. But when you think about this, and this is kind of how I explain it when I'm talking to attorneys, when I'm trying to educate them about what I need from them, I ask them to put themselves in the place of their client. What if this was you, and you were about to lose your family, your children, your liberty, your life? Would it be important for the reporter to get every word? And they go, yeah. So while we don't want to interrupt, we don't want to intrude in the proceedings, unfortunately, it's just a part of the game. It's a part of the process. And if they want a really good record, then they have to be respectful of that. And at the end of the day, even if they're not respectful of it, your license, who do you think is going to get thrown under the bus if that record isn't what it needs to be? The reporter is, because it's your responsibility. So personality styles aside, you have to figure out a way, whether it is, I got my hand on a piece of paper, so I don't have to talk to them about it. This here, I had one reporter tell me, I don't know how she rigged this, and I'm still not sure I believe it, but she says she has a red light that she has attached to a pedal that she pushes on the floor. And it flashes when they're talking on top of each other. She doesn't have to say a word. It's like lights up and catches everybody's attention. And I had this picture of a squirrel that was standing on a tree limb, and it was like his hands were up like that, and his mouth is wide open, and it says, "Everybody calm down." And I thought, how cool would it be if you're doing real time, you're like, plop that picture on the screen, when they're talking on top of each other, and you want them to stop doing that. Yeah. Okay, hang on. She wants a dog collar to shock people. And I'm kind of liking that idea, actually. But see, they can't know that it's there. So it would have to be something sneakier than a dog collar that shocks them. I would like to, let me tell you what I did to an attorney. This is a little bit off topic, but what I did, I went into an office I'd never been to before, and every chair has to be adjusted. I'm a short person. All the chairs, apparently somebody tall has sat in them before. So I always have to adjust it down. Well, the newer chairs, they have like all kinds of adjustments on them, right? There's like 4 or 5 knobs and this pedal and that pedal, and you really don't know which one you're supposed to pull. So I pull this pedal, I'm in there by myself, and the chair like shot forward this way. Well, it was brand new, because I didn't get it back to where it was supposed to go. I like tried to push it back, and it wouldn't, and I went, okay, I'm not using that chair, and I moved it over, and I got another one, and I fixed it, and I'm fine. So we get ready to start the depo, the attorney comes in, the taking attorney comes in, and he sits in that chair, and he never says a word. He doesn't adjust it. He's like this the whole time. Maybe it was good for his back or something. I don't know. But I wasn't going to tell anybody. I was like, oh, see, I messed up that chair. But anyway, so, you got the chairs to deal with. You got all that stuff going on. And you really do need to be able to do your job. And that's the bottom line. Just do your job. So now, back to court. So if you can establish a good rapport with your judge, and I know after that meeting that I had with the judges about the horrible trial that I spoke about at the beginning, they asked me, so how do we know that we have a good reporter? And he said, because, we thought he was a good reporter. And I said, well, I'm not saying he's not. But I said, here's the only real way to know that you have a good writer. You have to call them into your office with their machine and say something and have them write it and look at it. If they're not doing real time, have them pull it up and read it to you, what you just said. But if they're doing real time, you see it on the screen. Really, everybody has bad days, but that's how you know. Because just because somebody can produce a transcript doesn't make them an excellent writer. So if you're missing something, if your reporter is asleep, and that's what I told them, clearly there's a problem if the reporter is asleep. How does that happen? That's our job. We're supposed to listen, right? So you have to say something. And the other time I think it's really important is, what I tell the attorneys is that something I've become just sort of really aware of over the last year or so is that we're trained listeners. You don't think about that, right? You just do what you do. But we're trained listeners. So I don't know if everybody else is affected by this the way that I am, but when I'm in a depot room or a courtroom or whatever, and there's conversation going outside the room or over here to my side, now I could, all day long, somebody could throw something or drop something, and I'm not distracted by that at all, but I am distracted by other conversation. Well, they're not, because they aren't trained to listen. They're thinking about their next, we're doing it, and we're thinking about our grocery shopping, or, we're looking out the window. I love it when I do that. I look out the window, and they think I'm not paying attention. Can you read that back? And I'll pull it up, right there. It's here. They think, how are you doing that? I've been doing this a long time. I don't have to be looking at you to hear what you said. It's just natural. And, so anyway, so when you're in court and you're having to deal with people talking, yet another, excuse me, Your Honor, I had one, and literally, this is something you would definitely, I think probably everybody in the room would interrupt in this situation. I had it was attempted murder trial, and the guy was not crazy, but he was acting like he was crazy. And he went during lunch and took a bunch of cold medication, and he was gagging after lunch, gagging and falling out of his chair. And we were in voir dire, and it was a very tight courtroom, so I'm here, and the jury box is here. And he's gagging, and guess what? Another juror starts to gag. The court is not paying him any attention because he was fine on Friday, and it's Monday, and he's not fine, right? So I'm seeing this going, he is going to throw up on me, and I'm not having that. So I said, excuse me, Your Honor, I think we need to take a break. He looked at me pretty serious and said, why? And I said, I think the juror is going to be sick. And he went, oh, yeah, we definitely need to take a break, and because he wasn't looking at the jurors. But I was like, they are not going to throw up on me. So sometimes you just have to. Whatever way you need to feel like you need to do it, excuse me, you need to go to the restroom. You've been sitting there for 4 hours. Hello, I'm over here. My name is not Chair. my name is Kathy, and don't you think it's funny? Who has ever had their name said in, doesn't it freak you out when somebody says your name? Who's that? I gave a little quick tip for people on my STEM Edge page. Brief your name. I never thought of that. KZ. So, but it totally throws you off your game when somebody says this is your name. No, this is the court reporter. I told somebody that I was in an arbitration that I was going to change my name to the court reporter. And he said, listen, if you're going to do that, change it to superstar court reporter. And I went, really? And so when we came back from break, he told the arbiter, he said, so the superstar court reporter is going to swear in the witness now. That is very cool. Thank you for that. He still didn't know my name. But I'll take superstar court reporter. So now what I want to do is I want to, who will come up? I need a few people to come up. What time do we have? Oh my gosh, I have been talking this long. Why didn't you people tell me to stop talking? Awesome. You didn't want to get up out of your chair, did you? Well, we don't. We can do a little bit. We can do just like a little segment because it's really important for people you guys all know that it's important to interrupt. Does anybody have any questions? So I'll just skip that little part since you guys seem to have enjoyed that. But does anybody have any questions? Okay, I have over here. You have it on TCRA's website. I think they have it on the website, but you can also go to STEMedge.com, and it's under downloads, the downloads tab. There's just one download, and if you just click on it, it's a PDF, so you can just print it out. And I have cards up here. And today and tomorrow and Monday, you guys lucked out because I did not bring my big computer and I can't change the price on my website for my book that I have. So if you want the briefs book, you have until Monday night to get it for $15. It's a little more than 3,000 briefs and phrases if you like to brief. And if you don't have your own or you want to shorten your style, and my cards have a QR code on it that'll take you right to the storefront. So it's called Briefly Speaking. And but take a look at the STEM Edge fan page on Facebook. And if you like what you see, then the briefs are very similar to that in the book. Yeah. Then I'll come back to you. Yeah. No, STEM Edge. Like education. Yeah, you're welcome. Yes?
Do you have any recommendations for in court, during the docket call, when they call the case the first time, and if you run up there, then they're going to pass it and come back to it. If you don't run up there, then they're going to start talking. And I keep my digital recorder on me, but when I'm running up there, all you hear on the digital recorder is this.
Yeah.
Do you stop them and throw your hands up, or do you just run up there and get what you get?
No, I do stop them. I absolutely do. And, I tell them, this is, I know, a big thing here. It was for me. I went over to, listen, this guy was on the board. This judge was on the board. And he wouldn't even wait for me to sit down, and he would start talking. And so, excuse me, Your Honor, you don't have a record yet. Really? They don't have a record. I'm not sitting down yet. You can talk if you want to, but if you don't care, like if the first 15, 20 words you say are on the record, maybe they're not important. I don't know. It's not my job to know what's important to you, but the whole record is important to me, so I definitely would say something. And I know that if you're going to downtown Nashville, it's kind of hard, There was a judge, I don't think she's on the bench anymore. She's the one that would make you spit out your chewing gum. You know, she would send her bailiff around and have people spit out in a tissue. So there are tons of those. But yeah, I definitely would, you know, and as I said, if you're in there enough, you can go and talk to the clerk and say, hey, look, you know, I kind of need to sit down. Can you tell me how to approach the judge? Because they know, the clerks know, the bailiffs know the judge personally, and I just kind of need to be able to sit down and take my record. I mean, we shouldn't have to run to our machines to get the record. I don't run. I'm not going to run because I would totally fall. And then we would have another lawsuit on our hands. Yeah, maybe. They don't stop when you're choking. They might just say, get what you get. Yes, ma'am. What can I answer for you? Did you have a question? Oh.
To me, what it all boils down to is I'm not afraid to stop because I want to sleep that night, and I want to make sure that I don't go home and say, because everybody else in that room goes home and forgets about it all. If I don't have it and I don't speak up, then it's me. I'm just going to make sure I walk out of there and know that I've done the best job I can. So.
Absolutely. And I think that everybody in this room feels that way about it, right? You all value your jobs. You all value what it is that you do in the proceedings. And all we really need is a little bit of help with that because we can't do it alone. We're a part of that legal team. And I think that as they become aware that you're trying to take your job and their client's best interest, you know, it's not about me. It's about what I'm doing. And I'm here for you. You have me here. Otherwise, I can go home and you can just have no record because there's that, right?
When you have a judge walks in the room, the bailiff says, everybody please stand. The judge starts talking before everybody can sit down. Is it okay next time not to stand up?
Yeah, I don't stand up. I don't stand up. And they don't expect you to. They don't. I've actually asked several about it. You know, do I stand up? Do I not stand up? No, you have to take the record. You know, we're not like, who is it that stands up and plays the piano? You know, we're not that person. Yeah, Jerry Lee Lewis? We're not Jerry Lee Lewis. And so there's no way I mean, they do. The majority of them start talking before you can sit down. I don't stand up, you know, and they'll just have to get it if they mind. But most of them don't. They want the people out there to stand up. But, you know, the people back here, especially not the reporter, they know we've got to sit down to do our jobs except if we're, you know, standing up and walking around with a harness on. So, and I don't want to do that. Who in here wants to do that? Walk around with your harness? Nope. Do you know that? Do you know what I'm talking about? The federal reporters in the Congress? Yeah. Yeah. Any more questions? You guys ready to leave? Yay. Well, thank you again for having me. Thank you for staying. I appreciate it. Yeah, please, I've got cards up here on the table. If you're interested, please come and get them. And enjoy the rest of your conference. I appreciate it.